Doug Donahue is a managing partner at Strategic Footprint. They enable companies to take back full control of their brand by moving away from subcontract manufacturing in China. We welcome him to the Newsmaker line. Doug, how are you on this Tuesday?
Pretty good. And yourself?
Doing well, sir. Thank you for joining us here in the Newsmaker line. Now, it's not only you doing this, but there is a survey that shows Americans prefer products made in the USA. And there's a couple of things we need to walk through this. There's the sort of the patriotic portion of this, but I need you to help me with the economics portion. The economics thing is my background. If we offshored this to China in the first place because it was less expensive, what's the point of bringing it back?
Well, it is no longer as less expensive, but the real reason is consumer preferences. Consumers want locally made product. If you can get the price point that's correct, they would much rather buy it. And more importantly, we do have some macroeconomic things going on that have increased the cost of producing overseas.
I think there's something else as well that goes beyond the economics portion of it. We found through PPE and a couple of other different things that we are just so dependent on foreign, specifically Chinese manufacturing for critical areas of our economy that we need in the case of things like this in a pandemic. But how do we do this where we can bring things back onshore to the United States and still make it economically viable?
Well, the key is in the supply chain. What China has done terrific over the last 30 years, and all kudos to them, is they've built a supply chain from the smallest widget all the way up to the final product. So we need small and medium-sized businesses to help supply that supply chain locally or at least throughout North America.
U.S. tariffs, political issues, and Buy American preferences are some of the elements driving U.S. companies to build their product closer to home. That's according to managing partner of Strategic Footprint, Doug Donahue, who says many companies turn to subcontracting in China to save money.
We are absolutely seeing a trend where companies are trying to reshore their work for a couple of different reasons, predominantly economic reasons, but also market-driven reasons, consumers wanting it to be made locally also.
A lot of consumers want to know where the products that they're buying were made, whether it's something that you're buying in the store or maybe you're a manufacturer and you want to know that the parts that you're buying were made in the USA. And so if you own a company that does any manufacturing and you want to be able to build in the U.S., but it's just cheaper to do in China, there is a solution to that. Joining us right now, managing partner with Strategic Footprint, Doug Donahue. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks. Your company is very interesting because it basically helps companies that subcontract out to foreign countries, particularly China, move things back to North America. How do you do this?
Well, it's quite a large effort. If a company is not manufacturing and they're actually with a subcontractor, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You have to get the intellectual property, intellectual know-how out of the subcontractor to be able to do it. Then you have to be able to determine your supply chain and set up the supply chain to be able to do it. And then you need to build a manufacturing facility or to establish a manufacturing facility. So it is quite a large initiative to take on. But the end result is very simple. You control your product, and you control your future as a company.
What do you think the trend is going to be over the next few years? Are we going to see more companies leaving China and building in the U.S.?
Well, I think we've seen this happening over a number of years, and this is one of the reasons that we started Strategic Footprint, is we see a regionalization in the global economy, and Detroit, your area, is a perfect example of it. Cars that are going to be sold in North America are now being made in North America. Cars that are going to be sold in Europe are now being made in Europe. Cars being sold in Asia are now being made in Japan and China. So we've seen this regionalization going on for a long time. Consumers are demanding, and manufacturers see a strategic advantage to having things manufactured within the region.
What's the biggest obstacle for companies that are subcontracting with Chinese corporations? What's the biggest obstacle that they have in trying to return to U.S. manufacturing?
There's the issues of capturing your intellectual property and getting that down on paper and internal knowledge. There's building up that manufacturing knowledge in your company. But then it's financing. If you are buying your product and you're not manufacturing and you're going to put a plant together, that is not an inexpensive proposition. So they have to be able to get the financing to be able to do that. And they're only going to get that financing if they can see a medium to long term to be able to recover. So I think that's where the government has an opportunity to be helpful to these companies is by opening up an opportunity that is more medium to longer term. But yes, it's the establishment of that manufacturing plant that is the bottleneck in this move of reshoring.
Doug, what size companies do you work with? Do you work mainly with large manufacturers, mid-size, small?
Yeah, no, our clientele is typically mid-size and below, privately held companies. The larger companies tend to have more internal knowledge and more internal resources. So ours are mid-size to smaller companies. Often privately held, sometimes still family-owned.
Yeah, and you're definitely filling a void that a lot of these companies have, and the resources that, as you point out, larger companies have, but a small company or even mid-sized company may not have, the staff on hand to handle these issues.
Absolutely. That building up that knowledge base, as I've alluded to, whether it's in manufacturing or supply chain, is the first step, and a lot of them are starting from scratch on that.